Hello, my name's Chris, and I wanted to just share a hopefully brief video, we'll see how brief it is, about my experience being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and I'm going to try my best to articulate this for ones who have been one of Jehovah's Witnesses and just want to hear another account from it, who are perhaps in the religion, kind of questioning that right now, which might be rare, but I think is more common now. And just again, someone who's just never known about the religion and just curious on how the inner workings work. So I'll try to be kind of succinct. The beginning of this will just be my story. I'll try to cover certain wordings, and then I want to kind of cover near the end of this, from my perspective at least, just the psychological impacts of being one of Jehovah's Witnesses or being in a high control group and then leaving, and how different life is. And I've been out for about 14 months. So it's, the first 3 months out was pretty emotionally exhausting. And so I'll cover that a little bit. So let me just kind of get a brief story about me and this organization. So my parents were Jehovah's Witnesses when I was basically born. So I think I came in at age 1. So, before I can remember, right? I've been one of Jehovah's Witnesses for the past 39 years. I just turned 40 this year. And I left about 14 months ago. So, quite a bit of time. And during that time period, I was very devoted to the religion. And so I was baptized or became a Jehovah's Witness at age 15 and a half, and just nosedived into it. And you'll probably hear this a lot, at least from my perspective, talking to ones as an elder. I was an elder for about 7 years prior to leaving. Is that you'll see a lot of ones joining high control groups or Jehovah's Witnesses, typically from trauma. In life or in childhood, and that was the case for me. So I basically, my life was pretty up and down emotionally, and so with abuse kind of going on in my household. And so, man, when I kind of latched on to this idea, I really didn't consider, I wasn't too devoted to it up until age 15 and a half. Prior to that, I kind of was maybe like a lot of teenagers, right? Kind of like half sleeping during the during the talks, right? Whether in church or we call it a kingdom hall. So when I use the word kingdom hall, just translate that as the church, and the church of Jehovah's Witnesses, basically. So I just was sleeping in and out, and so at 15 and a half, I just nosedived into it. So I remember we visited Bethel, which was in New York. That's kind of the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses. It was stationed there and still is, I think, near there. And I saw it, and I just kind of was kind of in wow, okay, this is, I don't know. I just was I was full blown. I was full. Now, prior to that, I was still a very good, Jehovah's Witness and Christian person, right? So, but once that happened, I just fully dived into it. So I became a auxiliary pioneer very right after baptism, about 6 months later. And if you're not sure what a pioneer is, that's simply someone who spends a good chunk of their hours, all this is volunteer work, you don't get paid for it, in preaching the Bible to others. So if you aren't one of Jehovah's Witnesses and someone has to come to your door and they're out there a lot, most likely they're a pioneer. And so I was about 12 years a pioneer, off and on for the 25 years or so I was baptized. So I just was full involved in it. And I was, I remember being 18, 19 and looking forward to going to Bethel. And again, Bethel is the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses. And just I was trying my best to live according to what the organization was saying. And I believe it sincerely. Weirdly enough, I feel like I'm a fairly logical person. I love learning. I love science and mathematics. And I I rarely truly question the religion, because you're told, and especially coming from an environment where you're kind of beat down a little bit, you're kind of told that like you're not enough. And you're really told to lean into humility, which I think as human beings, I think being humble and it is a beautiful quality, but when it's the extreme, right, you no longer question things. You're just told that you don't know enough. You need to be more humble, listen to people older than you, wiser than you. And there's a certain beautiful aspect to that, to learn from people who are smarter, who actually know. I think that's, that's why ones go to college, and they're learning from ones who've been in it. But when you're told not to question anything, that's the line. And in this case, it's just, you're kind of just pushed into this like, don't question anything. So even though doubts would come into my mind, I would quickly throw them away, probably like many Jehovah's Witnesses, because when you're indoctrinated into this belief system, and again with high control groups, all I can speak as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you're really just told that no other thinking around you is accurate. The only accuracy is what we teach you. And really now from the outside perspective, now being out for 14 months, it seems to me respectfully crazy. I use that word very respectfully, that I did that. Because now looking back, you can see how flawed and how inaccurate it was. But at the time, I was so convinced, right? You're like, yeah, you're sincere. Like yes, yeah. And yeah, don't question. Yeah, people, know the Bible better than me. Very true. Yeah, well, I don't know Greek, Aramaic. I don't know, Old Hebrew. Ones know more than I do, for sure. So if I have doubts, I'm just gonna put that aside. And maybe in the future I'll know more, and maybe or some new information will come out, and I'll be able to, learn this. And so, for many Jehovah's Witnesses, there's like this invisible shelf where you put all your doubts on, and you're really not told to question that. And kind of the few things that, as Jehovah's Witness, a few kind of main aspects that kind of limit critical thinking is that you're not supposed to consider any information outside of the organization. So it's respectfully propaganda, right? So you're told just to listen to this set of information. Don't consider anything else. And when you even do consider outside information, it's a bias, right? You're defaulting to your original belief. You're really not fully believing in information you're being told against. You're just following back to that. And so there's a lot of biases. There's a lot of unfortunate manipulation that goes into it. And so one of them is that you can't consider any information outside of it, and you really can't associate with anyone. So a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, at least when I was growing up, were homeschooled. So, and for me it was a little different because I was beat up a lot in school. So I was taken out of school because I was beat up. So, so at age 7th grade or so onwards, I was homeschooled, and so you don't have the social structure and things you would learn in middle school or high school about just things in general. You're not accustomed to that, so it really limits that thinking. So, and one of the major things in Jehovah's Witnesses, of course, you can't really be friends or have any associates outside the organization. You're supposed to have friends inside of that, really only. You can be nice to everyone outside, but you really can't be friends with them and really spend any time with them. And really the third major thing is that, and this has changed a little bit, but they believe in the shunning. So they believe that, if you step away from religion and you kind of say, hey, I don't want to believe this anymore, that everything you've known will be removed. So your family, your friends, anyone who's involved in it, and of course, because you're not supposed to have any friends outside of it, all your friends, maybe all the family that you're close with, really is inside the organization. So if you leave, that's all gone. So those are the major things that was there. And so So I gave my absolute all, and I was one of those odd. I'm still odd, but I was one of those odd Jehovah's Witnesses that really studied deeply. And so there was a book that was published. I believe it's called Inside of the Scriptures. It's a green book, and it's basically a dictionary of everything Jehovah's Witnesses believe. And so, honestly, very few Jehovah's Witnesses have read the whole thing. Maybe ones in Bethel obviously have, but I was one of the weird ones that just like actually cracked it open and actually like underlined and read the whole thing. You would have thought I would have somehow been like, aha, it's wrong. But again, because of these biases, right? Because you're kind of told that you're not good enough, you don't know enough. You just kind of like realize, like, even after you read everything that the organization publishes on the Bible and their belief system, even when you've read everything, you still have all these questions and there isn't answers. And you're still told just to kind of push those aside, or that someone else has the answers. You're just not smart enough. You haven't read enough. You haven't done the research enough, and that's why. And it's kind of this weird circular reasoning where when you do ask questions, it's like, that's a great question. Have you done research? And the confidence is being exuded is that they know the answer, but they're going to let you do the research first, and realize they don't know the answer. That's what they just say. And it's this weird brainwashing type of cyclical reasoning that keeps you kind of locked into this wheel. You can't really escape it because you don't know enough. You can ask questions and it just doesn't make sense. And if you question anything, you're questioning God directly. If you question an elder, or if you question the organization, you're not questioning the organization. You're actually questioning God. That's their reasoning. And so anytime you kind of step out of line, that card is placed on the table. Like, so you think you're smarter than God? You think you're smarter than the governing body, which is like the leaders of the organizations? They're constantly fed these cards, and you're kind of like backing away because, again, you're supposed to be humble. You're supposed to be, not use a lot of critical thinking. So that was a situation. So to be really honest, I don't think if I wasn't an elder, I'd probably still be one of Jehovah's Witnesses because of this circular thinking, and because of the propaganda. You're told that authority above you knows more than you. So if you're a publisher, which would be considered kind of just a normal member of a congregation, right? Just a audience member, right? You're not involved in the religion at all. If you're one of them, the pastor or the elder knows way more than you, right? So if you don't progress, you're kind of just like, well, yeah, I don't know a lot. They must know a lot. So yeah, if they're telling this is true, then I just kind of believe it. And you're kind of, so if I didn't become an elder, I'd probably be still in that wheel, because you're in this wheel of being humble, don't question anything, because God's gonna be angry with you, right? And you can't be angry with you because you want to make it, right? You want to make it to the new world. You want to, live a life beyond this. And I was an elder for 7 years before I left, because again, I was like, for the first few years, like, I don't know a lot, right? I mean, I saw some things in the back room. I was like, all right. Like, it was just, there's so many stories I have, and I want, this could go on for hours. I'll try to be very kind of succinct with my information here. So I was an elder for 7 years. Basically, I just kind of said, okay, I remember giving talks at the congregation, and me and my ex-wife were also like assigned by the circuit overseer. This is like a traveling elder who visits, and it's kind of a special deal in the organization. And we're assigned by them to help other congregations out. So we were kind of used in some areas there, which I felt very humble and very, very, very happy to do so. And I had a nice reputation of being a very kind and loving elder. And so I deeply cared about everyone in the congregation. I still have a big heart and care about people now. So that's something I can take with me. But I remember just saying, you know what? I have all the information. I should be able to answer this question. Like it just dawned on me that like there has to be an answer to these questions. Like we can't just be in this wheelhouse, right? Like just kind of going, like there has to be an answer to our main beliefs. Specifically 1914, which Joseph believes when Jesus became ruling as king. And then at that time period, between 1914, 1919. There was a testing period after 1919. At 1919, he chose Jehovah's Witnesses, at the time were Bible students were called, to be his people. Out of all Christians on the earth, those were apostate Christians. Those were Christians that were following the devil. This group of Christians is being chosen by Jesus exclusively to dispense spiritual food to the nations. That's really the main belief that witnesses have. And that was supported by this scripture, that scripture, some and all that is the foundation that holds up all the beliefs. Because if a new light comes out, new information from the organization, you're under the belief that that's really coming from Jesus, right? This is the channel, so you can't question that. So that all the beliefs have this reasoning there. 1914 is a huge aspect, and that the governing body, which was appointed by Jesus, are actually appointed, and so they have the authority to basically tell you what to do and kind of give you information, all that kind of stuff. That's a major structure. There's a lot more, but I think it kind of gives you a good basis there. And so after 7 years, I basically, honestly, this is all I did, the thinking. This is the thinking that I did. Okay, Chris, so you got the Bible. You've read it a lot. You've read the Insight book, and you should be able to find the answer. And I gave myself an allowance. I said, Chris, wherever the truth leads you, that's where you go. You have to follow the truth. You have to follow the facts of God's word. And wherever that goes, that's where you'll go. And once I allow my brain that permission to simply follow what the Bible said, if this is inspired, then the answer should be in here. And after 1 week, I knew it wasn't the truth. 1 week. Quite frankly, it was actually like 2 or 3 days probably, but to be honest, it was like 1 week. I didn't consider any opposing information, right? I didn't consider any apostate or things contrary, any opposing religious books. It was just the Bible, and it was religious information that the organization published. And after a week, it was like, okay, shit. This isn't true. And it's amazing what happens to your brain. At least all I can tell you is my experience, right? Sorry, my nose is running. It's loud outside too, so I apologize. It's crazy what happens is that when your brain just you believe something for so long, and all of a sudden it's like, this isn't true. Like this is not true. And it was kind of hard to swallow for a few weeks. To be honest, a few months, it was like after leaving, it was like, what the fuck? Sorry. So it was a lot. So I left, and I wasn't going to be a hypocrite. So I talked to my fellow elders, and I told them that I just don't feel comfortable being an elder anymore with all these doubts. I shared with them my doubts. Again, they didn't have any different information, other than the fact that, the organization has published this information, and they're the only ones that can dispense it, and only ones that could really read the Bible accurately. Okay. So after I told my fellow elders, I faded out, right? I stopped going to church or the Kingdom Hall, and then a month later, I just stopped going. And I just knew that it wasn't real. Now here's where I'm going to do a tangent. Sorry, no, this is right. Here's going to do a tangent. So I'll give you that kind of brief. What I want to kind of consider too, a little bit is the psychological impacts of all these things, and how this shifting of your brain can affect ones who leave, especially in high control groups, at least as Jehovah's Witness. So one thing, I was married for 16 years. First of all, wonderful person. No, I think just two people they're not meant to be together. I think that's the fact. But we're told you can't leave. That's a whole different story, right? So dating is a whole other story as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Basically, you're not supposed to talk to anyone of the opposite sexually. You're not supposed to do that. Dating is very strange in Jehovah's Witnesses because You don't get a lot of experience actually talking to the opposite sex. Now, I will say, as a man, right, I would say most men have trouble talking to women, specifically attractive women that they feel is attractive. As one of Jehovah's Witnesses, though, you are not given that skill set at all. Like, you are discouraged from talking really to anyone of the opposite sex remotely close to your age. Definitely can't be alone in the car with them. No, like, so they live in chaperoning. Now that's kind of, I think, changed a little bit, but when I was being raised, and for all I know, it's like you couldn't really always chaperone. Someone older than you who is typically married has to be overseeing pretty much all conversations and association you have with this member of the opposite sex. So you can't get to know anyone really well. And obviously you can't have sex before marriage. So one's kind of get into marriage very quickly, and then they're kind of told, like, all right, just make it work, which it's kind of obviously tough to do that. So I dated 3 people prior to that, and I married my ex after 3.5 months. Just, looking back, it just so, and this is probably the messed up story, is like, as a husband, I knew that she wasn't the one after a year or 2 years. Like, I knew, but I could not leave, right? Because if you divorce or separate, you'll be disfellowshipped. And disfellowshipping, kind of mentioned before, is like this shunning happens, right? Is this social isolation. So again, your God doesn't like that, so you have to just kind of make it work. And so it puts so much stress under both parties, and it creates this whole dynamic that is unhealthy. So I say that because once I left, I also left my marriage because I knew, like, it's the only thing holding that together was this religion. So then I left, and then just things changed, right? Like I my first holidays was this year. The first time going to bar was 10 months ago. You're not really encouraged to go to the bar at all, because again, that's it's wicked stuff, right? And again, not drinking is okay, but it's questionable. It's a conscious matter. Depending on what church you are or congregation, depends on if drinking is good. Honestly, what country you're in too. If you're in Ireland, man, drinking's fine. They go drinking afterwards, right? You almost get drunk afterwards. But in the United States, that's not the case. So it really depends where you're at. So in my case, it was really hindered. So, and of course, again, talking to anyone with the opposite sex was like, that skill set didn't exist. So I'm still trying to figure that out. So just getting to know other people has been kind of challenging. And so to be really honest, if I can, I thought just briefly about suicide within the first 3 months. It briefly came into brain. Never did anything about it. But you're underneath so much emotional stress that your whole life has changed. Like, everything that I believed is now no longer factual. So what is real? And your brain just goes through this processing of like, what is real? And so it was definitely a lot of weight for me to process all that was challenging. Fortunately, I was in therapy. Actually, I was in therapy prior to leaving, and kudos to my therapist, because I honestly don't think I told him this, but I do think that those conversations helped me kind of open my brain up, really analyze my own religion. And again, like I said, within a few days or a week, I knew it was done. So yeah, it was just one thing we'll consider, which is interesting. So a lot of the dating environment's very unique. So you're just kind of like, you don't have a lot of options. I would say honestly, to be as a former elder talking to ones, most marriages are unhappy as Jehovah's Witnesses, because you're kind of forced to be with someone and continue marrying them when you actually don't love them. And a lot of times there's animosity and these kind of negative feelings that involve, as opposed to the point like realizing, hey, like, whoops, like, we shouldn't have married. You're a wonderful person. I'm a wonderful person. We just are not compatible, and that's okay. I hope you find someone. That maturity doesn't exist, because divorce and separation is this taboo subject, and again, God disapproves of it. So, but definitely learning about life, and it's been a unique thing. I will mention one more thing that I think is, like, in hindsight, looking back, I feel like I've taken a lot of some positives with me. I don't really have negative feelings. I did for a little bit. I don't have any negative feelings. I mean, just like, it is life. Do I wish things were different? Yes. Do I wish I would have left sooner? Yes. But I can't, right? I'm living in the present moment. I can't change the past. So there's all I can do is look in the rearview mirror for a little bit and realize, okay, what can I take from this journey and apply it to the now moment to help my future become more promising. And when I did that, I feel like each day that went by I became stronger as an individual. And at least that blessing I can kind of take with me. I will mention one thing that is a sad aspect that, interesting enough, has changed a little bit is you weren't encouraged to go to college or have any higher education, right? Being taught by the university was very, very wrong, right? Even the Elders book that I had up at the moment of leaving, right? So this was only a year ago. Going to college was absolutely no. If you want to progress and be a ministerial servant, which is kind of like a assistant to an elder or pastor, you can't encourage anyone to go to college. It said this in the book. If you encourage anyone to go to college, basically it's an instant removal of privileges. It's an instant, like, this is pretty much like you no longer have privilege anymore. And okay, a few more things I'll say because now my brain's there, is that there's a lot of sexism in the religion, and the fact that it's so sad. Women are so suppressed in there. Again, I can't speak as being a woman, just talking to some, is they're just not allowed privileges. They're not allowed to really speak up very much in the organization. So it's very sad that they have this kind of like suppressed feelings. On the opposing side, I believe men too are highly suppressed as well, and damaging, because you're constantly told you're not enough. Both women and men, specifically men though. Women were told they're not good enough for a biblical reason. Well, you're a woman, so you can't have privileges in the congregation. Well, you can have some, but you can't have a lot, which is fucked up, right? Again, sorry. For men though, it's like you can have privileges, but you're not good enough. So it's a whole different, you know what I'm saying? It's a whole different thing. You can have these privileges, but you probably won't attain them. There's very few out of 100 people, publishers in a congregation, 100 people in a congregation, there's typically, 5 to 10 elders and maybe 2 to 5 ministerial servants. So out of 100, 15%, 15 are part of that. The other men don't attain that. And it's told they're not good enough, they're not going out in service enough, or talking to people the Bible enough. They're not having family worship, which is studying with your family. You're constantly told that you can't reach. There's so much to kind of talk about this. It's really messed up on how you're constantly suppressed and told you're not good enough. I put into this category the sense of the college. Going back to the college aspect, is that the organization really was telling young ones to kind of sacrifice themselves, give of your youth, right? Give of your youth to this organization. Give your time, your energy, give to Jehovah, right? Which Jehovah is the name they use for God, and it's a long story of that. But give all your time to there, and then later in life, you can give to yourself, basically. And really, the aspect is you can never give to yourself because you're constantly sacrificing for God till you die. That's really the motto of a Jehovah's Witness, is that you will constantly be sacrificing to death. And when you realize that, at least from my perspective, that there may not be anything after death, holy shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, sacrifice until death, and then after that, well, you just kind of waste your life. And so it's just sad, right? It's just very, very sad that that's the case. And what makes it so sad is the fact that, like when we learn about like how the brain works and how like development works, typically very creative aspects of like mathematical proofs and inventions, and these high things typically occur prior to someone's age 25. of just how the brain works. So obviously, very rarely it'll be above that, but many of these things that we've advanced our society with has been people below the age of 25 who've reached these theories and thoughts and be able to present them to the world. And so sad the fact that if you think about the 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses and how young ones were there, how many of them never reached their potential. And it's so sad to think, and I think I remember hearing this in another YouTube video, but just how sad that is, that so many will never have reached their full potential. And that's sad, right? Because there's a lot of beautiful people in this religion that I think deserve better. But again, that's my probably long story. I apologize. I have ADHD, by the way, so if you're still following, thanks. This is like my therapy, so I appreciate you. And I may or may not share another video. I don't know. There's so many stories to, kind of tell about being an elder and just things that I saw and just I don't know. But it's one of the things. It's like sometimes just better move on, you know. I don't know. Anyways, I appreciate you. Take care.